$12 part sitting in a junkyard transmission made your grandmother's Buick shift like it was angry at the world. Most people throw it away when they rebuild a TH400. The smart ones? The ones who knew. They'd spend hours in their garage, filing it by hand, weighing springs on a postal scale, turning that little mechanical brain into something that could make a sleeper absolutely devastating at the track. This is the story of the TH400 Governor, the most underrated piece of muscle car engineering ever created, and why it's still changing the game today. Part 1. What is the TH400 Governor? Picture this. It's 1964. GM just dropped the TH400 Turbo Hydromatic into everything from Corvettes to Cadillacs. 3 speeds of pure hydraulic magic. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Buried at the back of that transmission, bolted to the output shaft, sits this little aluminum housing with 2 weights, some springs, and a handful of check balls. It doesn't look like much. Shoot, it weighs maybe 8 ounces. But this is your car's shift brain. See, automatic transmissions don't just magically know when to shift. They need input. 2 kinds, actually. There's throttle pressure, how hard you're pressing the gas, and there's governor pressure. That's where our little friend comes in. As your car accelerates, the output shaft spins faster. Those centrifugal weights inside the governor get thrown outward by physics. The faster you go, the more they move. And as they move, they open valves that send hydraulic pressure back to the valve body, basically saying, hey, we're going fast enough now, time to shift. It's mechanical simplicity at its finest. No computers, no sensors, just weights, springs, and centrifugal force doing exactly what Sir Isaac Newton said they would. But here's where it gets interesting. GM built these things for your mom's grocery run to the A&P. Smooth shifts at 35 miles per hour. Keep the passengers comfortable. Don't wake the neighbors. The hot rodders, they had very different ideas. Part 2. Why it mattered in the muscle era. Walk into any speed shop in 1968 and you'd hear the same conversation happening in the corner. Some kid with grease under his fingernails asking the old timer behind the counter, how do I make my Chevelle shift at $5,000 instead of $3,000? The answer wasn't a $500 shift kit. It wasn't pulling the transmission and going full manual valve body. It was 20 minutes in the parking lot with a screwdriver pulling that governor out and making some modifications. See? Those factory weights, they were heavy. Heavy weights mean the governor doesn't create enough pressure until you're already cruising at grandma speeds. But lighten those weights, file a few grams off each one. Suddenly your 396 is holding first gear until 4,500 RPM, second gear until 5,200, and third gear, well, that's where you find out what your engine really makes. This wasn't just bracket racing science either. This was sleeper gold. Picture it, 1969 Buick Grand Sport. Looks like an insurance salesman's family car. Stock wheels, stock paint, maybe a slightly lumpy idle if you knew what to listen for. But underneath, the governor's been kissed by someone who understood physics. Light turns green. Buick sits there, building boost pressure if it's got a turbo, or just building RPM if it's naturally aspirated. Then it grabs second gear at 5,000 RPM with the violence of a freight train, and that insurance salesman just walked away from your supposedly fast car like you were standing still. I talked to a guy named Jerry who ran a speed shop in Detroit back then. He told me about this customer who had a bone stock 71 Buick GS. Thing looked like it came off the showroom floor, but Jerry had modified the governor. Jerry says, kid comes back 2 weeks later, grinning like an idiot. Tells me he was at a red light next to some punk in a Roadrunner. Roadrunner guy's revving his engine. Being all tough, light goes green. Buick just sits there for a second, then bang, shifts at 5,400 RPM and disappears. Roadrunner guy never knew what hit him. That's the power of the invisible modification. Part 3, how builders tuned it. So how exactly did they do it? Well, grab your mental toolbox because we're going full garage scientist here. The TH400 governor has two weights, primary and secondary. The primary weight controls your 1 to 2 shift. The secondary handles your 2 to 3. Each weight has its own spring, and those springs matter more than you'd think. Factory setup. Primary weight is usually around 4.5 grams, secondary around 3.2 grams. Springs are soft because comfort, but start filing material off those weights and the math changes fast. Remove 1 gram from the primary weight and your 1 to 2 shift point jumps about 800 RPM. File the secondary weight and your 2 to 3 does the same thing. But here's the trick the real builders knew. It's not just about the weights. Those springs control the rate at which the governor pressure builds. Stiffer springs mean the weights have to work harder to compress them, so you can run lighter weights but stiffer springs and create a governor that shifts hard and late, but still has good drivability on the street. Some guys got creative, really creative. They'd mix and match parts from different governors. Take the weights from a Corvette governor, which were already lighter for performance, and combine them with springs from a truck governor, which were stiffer for durability. Others went full mad scientist. I've seen guys drill holes in weights to lighten them precisely, or add tungsten putty to make them heavier for engines that made torque instead of RPM. One builder I knew used to keep a postal scale in his shop just for weighing governor components. But here's what separated the real pros from the weekend warriors. They didn't just modify the governor, they understood how it worked with everything else. Part 4, the complete system. See, the governor doesn't work alone. It's part of a hydraulic dance with the throttle valve, the vacuum modulator, and the valve body. Change one thing and everything else changes too. The smart builders knew this. They'd modify the governor, but they'd also adjust the throttle valve linkage for quicker pressure rise. Maybe swap in a stiffer vacuum modulator spring. Tweak the valve body just enough to make the shifts hit harder without breaking anything. The result? A transmission that drove like stock in traffic, but turned into a completely different animal when you put your foot down. That's the holy grail of street performance. Invisible until you need it, then absolutely devastating. And the beautiful part? It was all reversible. Don't like how it shifts? Swap back to stock weights and springs. Want to try something different? Grab a different governor from the junkyard and start experimenting. This was backyard engineering at its finest. No dyno sheets, no computer simulations, just guys with calipers and files and a deep understanding of how things worked, creating combinations that would make modern transmission shops scratch their heads. But then something happened that changed everything, and it wasn't what you'd expect. Part 6, the modern twist. By the mid-80s, everyone assumed the governor was dead tech. Electronic controls were taking over, lock-up torquey converters, computer-controlled shift points. The era of mechanical simplicity was ending. Except it wasn't. Today, TH400s are more popular than ever. LS swaps, Coyote swaps, modern engines making serious power, and guys are still choosing the TH400 because it's bulletproof, rebuildable, and completely tunable. And guess what? The governor still works. In fact, it works better now than ever because we understand the science better. Modern builders are taking this 1960s technology and combining it with contemporary knowledge. They're using computer modeling to design optimal weight and spring combinations. They're 3D printing custom weights with precise mass distribution. They're creating governors that would make those original hot rodders weep with joy. I know a builder in Arizona who specializes in TH400s for street rods and muscle car restorations. He told me he's got a database of over 200 different governor combinations, each one designed for specific engine and vehicle combinations. Want your LS swapped 69 Camaro to shift like factory but with a 6,500 RPM redline? He's got a governor for that. Want your Coyote powered Model A to shift smooth as silk in traffic but grab gears like a race car at the track? Different governor, same principle. Part 6. Why it still matters. Here's the thing about the TH400 governor that nobody talks about. It represents something we've kind of lost in modern performance. The ability to modify and tune your car with simple tools and basic understanding. Today's performance is all about flashing ECUs and buying bolt-on parts, which is fine. It works, it's reliable, it's fast, but there's something beautiful about being able to change how your car behaves with a file, a scale, and some springs from the hardware store. The governor teaches you about hydraulics, about centrifugal force, about how mechanical systems work together. It connects you to your car in a way that clicking Stage 2 tune on a laptop just doesn't. And the results? When you nail it, when you find that perfect combination of weights and springs that makes your car shift exactly how you want it to, there's a satisfaction there that's hard to replicate. The TH400 governor never got magazine covers, never got its own TV show. It was just this little mechanical brain sitting in the back of transmissions doing its job with weights and springs and physics. But in the right hands, it changed everything. It turned grocery getters into street killers. It made sleepers that could embarrass supercars. It gave regular guys the power to tune their cars exactly how they wanted them for the price of a pizza and an afternoon in the garage. And it's still doing it today, still teaching people how mechanical systems work, still proving that sometimes the best technology is the simplest technology, perfected over decades by people who understood that the devil's in the details. Next time, we're going even deeper into forgotten performance tech. The Chrysler Cross Ram intake, the manifold that looked like it belonged on a moon rocket, sounded like the gates of hell opening and made horsepower that defied physics. Until then, remember, sometimes the most important part is the one nobody talks about.